This is my second video on 14.4 fitness session review. I'll be looking at the actual fitness session I did. So much like the last video, I'll be taking specific points and captions and describing what that is and reviewing it from my session and explaining whether it went well or not. Okay, so going straight into it. So risk assessment and PARQ. So risk assessment is used to make sure my session is safe and appropriate, make sure I've taken into account any danger and problems that may occur. So for my session, I had to write out a risk assessment, making sure I'd taken into account all risks that may occur during the exercise, during the session that I've planned. So after reviewing it, I think I covered all sections of the risk assessment, make sure that everyone's safe during my session, and there were no problems or risks during my session because the risk assessment had sorted that all out. Moving on to the PARQ, this is a questionnaire that helps me plan a session and suit my clients' needs and preferences based on things like injury, likes and lifestyle. So I talked a lot about this in the first video. Looking at the one I used for my session, I'd say that it helped me a lot, and it was a good PARQ as it helped me figure out the best session, and by taking into account injury, likes and lifestyle, I made the best session for my clients, and I felt it was very effective when using it. Moving on to plan and quality of the session. So the plan of the session is everything included in what will be done. This will include everything from warm-up to the main activity to the cool-down. It will include all drills, equipment and instructions needed. I felt my plan was very helpful for me and I think it was very effective as it helped me plan out everything I needed and made the session run effectively and smoothly. It made sure I knew what I was doing at all times and had everything ready to be used, so it helped me a lot with the session running effectively. Quality is the actual session itself. This is whether people enjoyed the session or it went well. It also could be if it was effective and exercising areas that have been targeted. It's basically if the session was effective. So I felt the quality of the session was very good. I felt like for the majority of the session I was hitting the areas needed, and people were feeling that as well. There were times in exercise where people felt some of the exercises weren't actually helping their speed, which I understood. I maybe could improve that and make sure the session actually targets speed, because it was a speed session at all times, instead of targeting other areas. So make sure all exercises are concentrating on speed. But overall I think the quality of the session was very good and made the session very effective. Moving on to rapport and development. So rapport is how I interacted with my clients during the session. This could be with encouragement or verbal feedback or tips and corrections on technique. So overall I thought my rapport was good. I was encouraging people throughout the session, complimenting them when they did well and kept them motivated and going. So I felt this was effective for the session, and I felt it helped the session move along and kept people enjoying it and motivated. Maybe I could have corrected a bit more technique, so stopping the session, showing them how it's done, making sure everyone's technique was perfect by showing them how it's done, or correcting people if they're doing it wrong. With moving on to development, this is where I change or evolve the session to make improvements. This could be done to avoid tedium or make something more challenging if it's too easy. Also, it could be done if one drill isn't working out too well and needs modifying. It could also be to make up time if the session is going quicker than planned, so if there was time to fill in the half an hour slot that I needed to fill. So I felt development was good. I didn't do much development because I had already pre-planned a session, so maybe for the future sessions I would change up a few things, make sure the session is more developed and improved to really be hitting at people's speed, making it more appropriate for the targets they have set as well. But I felt like the session was already pre-planned to be effective anyway, so I felt development was less necessary. But however, I still could develop it more to improve people's speed, as I think this will be helpful and more effective. Moving on to progression and achievement. So progression is where you look to improve the session to see results and more difference. It's quite like development, but progression is where you look at. So this is to see results in the training and make improvements. It's also to help avoid tedium, as it will be boring doing the same exercises over and over again. So if you're doing the same session for 6 weeks, then you'll become very bored and possibly demotivated. So I felt like with some of the exercises, I did progress it by adding in more things, making it more challenging and harder, really working my clients well. So I felt progression was good in my session. So an example would be with the ladder work. I made the ladder work harder with the stages as it went on. This would be progressing, as it's more challenging for my clients to do. So I think progression went well. Moving on to achievements, this is looking at whether the session is successful in what it's looking to do and achieve. It looks at whether certain goals are reached and specific targets are being hit. So with achievements, I felt I was hitting what I wanted to hit, which was improving speed. I maybe could be more specific with that and make sure all of the session was hitting speed, because sometimes I felt the session wasn't, and other people also felt the session wasn't completely looking at speed. So that could be something I would change to make sure the achievements are being hit. I could maybe also set more achievements in my thing, so setting a certain goal to reach, setting a certain intensity or heart rate. People hitting a certain heart rate, which could help, or people reaching a certain speed might help in my case with as it's a speed session. So I could possibly just set more achievements to reach. This could help my session move along and be more effective. So the overall review, I was able to review my session from different ways, like video analysis as we recorded the session, and also peer reviews as I got people doing my session to give feedback on how they thought the session went and how they thought I could improve. I was able to watch myself back and make judgments on how well I did from the video analysis. People who took part in my session all gave me feedback on what I could improve on, so anything I could change or anything that was good. Personally, I was also able to make judgments on how well I did, and I accomplished an effective and appropriate session. I thought my session went well. There were a couple of things I could improve on, but I felt overall the session was effective and useful for my clients. So the targets I've set for myself after taking into account the video analysis, the peer review, and my personal review, I think I should have referred to the risk assessment during delivery. This was because I didn't ask if anyone had any injuries or to take off any jewellery. I also caused a hazard with leaving out the ladders when doing the warm-up, which could have been a trip hazard, could have been dangerous. So just to make sure that it's not necessarily a smart target, but it's something I needed to improve on, which would have made my session better. So moving on to a proper smart target, look to target and correct people's technique more. So this is SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relatable, and time. So that's like you do it in a certain time. So with these targets to correct people's technique, so it would be specific in, like, I would look to correct people's technique with their footwork in their ladders. It would be measurable by looking at their technique first, correcting it, and then seeing if they've made improvements of that. Achievable would be setting them a certain goal to maybe get through the ladder quicker using that technique. So making sure it's easy for them and achievable for them to do. It would be relatable to the session, as quick footwork and correct footwork can help you increase your speed. And time, I'd make sure they did it within the session to see improvements quicker, making it more effective for them. My final target would be attempt to make the drills very, very specific to the targets. So I felt sometimes in my session not all my drills were really looking at speed, so it'd be specific to make them all about speed, so every drill about speed, measurable to get people to go through the drills and look to see if it's actually working people's speed, if people are improving their speed while doing these drills. So timing how fast they can run afterwards, which would be measuring it. Achievable would be making sure all the drills are are able to be worked through the session, so it would be helpful. And time consuming would be the one where I'd make sure I plan all the session in the 30-minute time to make it useful and to make it fill one session. And that's it. Thanks.